stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the dusty ranch as the wind swept across the empty plains of Wyoming. The air smelled of horses, sun-baked wood, and second chances. When the door opened, the driver climbed down and carefully lowered a small ramp. Out came a woman in a pale blue traveling dress, her gloved hands resting on the wheels of her chair. Her name was Evelyn May Carter, and she had crossed 3 states to meet a man she'd never seen. A man who had written to her not for love, but for help. The letters had been kind, steady, filled with stories of sunsets, laughter of 2 children, and the loneliness that comes from silence in a big empty house. Evelyn rolled forward, her eyes scanning the wide porch and the man who stood there. Samuel Holt was taller than she expected, rugged, sun-tanned, his shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes the color of a storm cloud. His 2 children, a boy and a little girl, hid behind his legs, peeking shyly at the strange woman with the bright eyes and brave smile. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, only broken by the creak of the porch and the cry of a hawk above. Then, in a voice low and uncertain, Samuel said, "You didn't tell me you couldn't walk." Evelyn's heart clenched. She had feared those words more than any other. "You didn't ask," she said softly. "And I thought, maybe it wouldn't matter." Samuel looked away, his jaw tightening. She could feel the weight of disappointment on his shoulders. This wasn't the bride he had imagined, not someone who'd need care, not someone broken. But what he didn't see was the fire in her spirit, the strength behind the delicate frame. She had been through worse than stares and silence. The day stretched long as the family sat for supper. The children giggled at her gentle humor, drawn to her warmth. Samuel stayed quiet, his mind turning. After the meal, he walked her outside, the moon silvering the grass. "You don't owe me anything," she whispered. "If you want to send me back, I'll understand." He looked at her then, really looked, not at her chair, not at her frailty, but at the woman who had traveled across miles with courage in her heart. His voice came rough and steady. "I asked for a woman who could make this house a home again. I didn't say she had to walk to do it." That night, as the coyotes sang in the distance, Evelyn sat by the window, a tear slipping down her cheek, not of sorrow, but of a fragile dawning hope. Days turned into weeks, and life on the Holt Ranch changed in quiet, powerful ways. Evelyn found her place, teaching the children to read by the firelight, sewing curtains that danced with color, and tending the small garden with her hands, even when her body wouldn't move as fast as her spirit. She never complained, never let pity shadow her smile. The children adored her, their laughter filling rooms that had long been silent. Samuel watched from a distance at first. He was a man carved by loss. His wife had died 3 winters ago, leaving behind a grief so deep he'd buried his heart beneath the soil of his work. But Evelyn, she stirred something alive again. Her kindness was steady as rain, and her courage was a lesson his children had started to learn. One afternoon, Samuel found her struggling to move her chair over the uneven ground. Without a word, he lifted her easily, setting her on a wooden platform he'd been building by the barn. "What's this?" she asked, blinking through tears. He wiped the sweat from his brow. "A ramp and a handrail. You belong everywhere on this land, Evelyn, not just where the ground is smooth." Her voice trembled. "You didn't have to," he smiled faintly. "I know, but I wanted to." For the first time, she saw the softness in his eyes. Not pity, but respect. That evening, as the sun sank low, Samuel brought her out to watch the horizon. The children sat at their feet, painting with sticks in the dirt. The golden light touched them all, and in that stillness, Samuel reached out, taking her hand. "You came here looking for a husband," he said. "But what I found is the woman I didn't know I'd been praying for." Evelyn's breath caught. The man who once saw her as a burden now looked at her as the heartbeat of his home. The next morning, the small town gathered for their simple wedding under the open sky. There were no carriages, no music, only the whisper of the prairie wind and the sound of 2 souls choosing each other. When Samuel lifted her in his arms to kiss her, the crowd cheered. And as they stood on the new ramp he had built, she whispered, "You gave me back more than a home, Samuel." "You gave me my place in the world again," he smiled. "No, Evelyn. You built it yourself. I just made sure you could reach the door. If you believe that strength isn't in the legs that walk, but in the heart that endures, subscribe to Old West Legends. Here, Every tale reminds us that love, courage, and redemption still ride the open plains.